Welcome to the Meteor Instructional Best Practices webinar series. Meteor Education is a leading educational services partner working with education providers to help them create high-impact learning experiences. As one of the largest providers of learning spaces, including furnishings and interior design services, Meteor's focus is the integration of best practices for teaching and learning to drive inquiry-based instruction, effective use of modern classrooms, and increase student achievement. Today we are going to explore rigor in mathematics. Did you know that rigor comes from what students do? It's the student action in the classroom. Rigor is one of those educational words that has many definitions as educators defining it. For some educators, it's about providing hard tasks for students to complete. For other educators, it's about the quantity of tasks, the more the better. But in reality, rigor is the learning experiences that challenge students' thinking in new and interesting ways. Rigor is about what students do and is individual to each student's needs. As you can see here, Meteor defines rigor as one of the key principles for high-impact learning experiences. The deliberate actions that are necessary for the types of learning experiences are aligned to the research of John Hattie's visible learning. We know that John Hattie's research resulted in specific indicators for success, as noted here. If we take a look at what his work cites as having direct impact on student achievement at a 0.4 or above, we notice the following connect to the rigorous learning experiences. They are teacher expectations of students, depth of conceptual knowledge, complex task analysis, and academic discussions. So let's spend some time discussing what the teacher action would be, what the teacher does to create an environment for rigor, and what the student action would be, what the student does to find success with a rigorous task. First, what do you think? Take a minute and jot down words or phrases that come to mind when you think of rigor. What are you looking for in the classroom as evidence of rigor? If you are watching this with your colleagues, you can stop the webinar and take some time to discuss your thoughts to determine if you are looking for the same types of evidence. Also, you may want to return to this at the end of this webinar to see if you would add look-fors to your list based on your new learning. So what is rigor? Rigor equals complexity plus difficulty. Complexity is the constant. In other words, it stays the same and never changes. Difficulty is the variable. It does change, and the teacher can support the student through best instructional practices. Let's break this down even further. Complexity, the constant, is the depth of knowledge level of the standard and/or the level of thinking that is required by the student to show proficiency. And difficulty, the variable, is about the individual student and meeting the student's needs. It is the skills and tools that each individual student brings to the task. The teacher can support students with various strategies, including addressing various learning styles and scaffolding learning experiences. The key here is that as educators, we must look at each individual student and stretch each student. So going back to the first half of the equation, complexity, the constant, the DOK levels. These are the 4 DOK levels. Level 1 is recall and reproduction. You either know it or you don't. Level 2 is application of concepts and skills. It's book knowledge or being able to follow procedures. Level 3 is strategic thinking. That's an original idea where students are uncovering information. And Level 4 is extended thinking. This is a research application to something students have not seen before. Educators need to understand these levels when creating learning experiences for students in order to create tasks or experiences for students at the correct cognitive depth. In other words, what is the level of student thinking that is required? And most state standards outline the complexity or depth of knowledge level, so it's not a guessing game for the teacher when it comes to what a level of a task should be. Going back to the second part of the equation, difficulty, the variable. It's important that teachers provide experiences for students that have an element of difficulty. For example, if a task is too easy, it really is only practice for that student. If a task is too difficult or hard, then most students will shut down or give up. Each learning experience for students needs to have just enough difficulty for a student so they are able to persevere to complete it. What makes something difficult for a student? There could be several factors such as reading and comprehension, lack of experiences, or even lack of basic mathematics skills. Since our topic is rigor in mathematics, let's spend some time talking about fluency in mathematics and how that is a factor that makes a task difficult for many students. Extensive research has demonstrated the critical role of fact fluency in school-level mathematics and is underscored by studies that show fact retrieval speed as a predictor of performance on math concept problems, word problems, data interpretation problems, and mathematical reasoning items. Essentially, they have determined through MRI research that the human mind has a limited capacity to process information, and if too much energy goes into calculating basic math facts, little is left over for complex problem solving and reasoning. Turn-of-the-century psychologists eloquently captured this relationship in the phrase, "Automaticity is not genius, but it is the hands and feet of genius." Math fact fluency is defined as the quick and effortless automatic recall of basic math facts. Students with math fluency have received instruction in the basic math facts. They possess strategies to determine answers to math problems and willingly use them when necessary. Within our K-8 math standards, a progressive set of expectations are established for fluency. We use math fluency standards to assess the readiness level of students in math. These standards are critical to students' readiness level to be successful in algebra, which is a gatekeeper for graduation, and in fact beyond algebra. If a student is having difficulty in algebra, or any math for that matter, you can pretty much go back to these fluency standards and find the student gap. Students who spend so much time trying to solve the problem due to lack of basic skills never can get to the higher levels of mathematics. This chart is a good example of how the fluency standards extend beyond kindergarten and 8th grade, as we just saw. High school mathematics builds new and more sophisticated fluencies on top of the earlier fluencies that centered on numerical calculation. As stated earlier, students that have difficulty with basic fluency skills often have difficulty with algebra. This is because algebra readiness is the fluent application of mathematical skills to solve problems with an unknown, especially real-world problems. And key elements in algebra include fluent computation, fluent mastery of word problems with common approaches, translation between word problems and mathematical expressions, as well as real-world modeling. So as you can see, fluency is for all students at all grade levels. And quick retrieval of basic arithmetic facts is critical for success in mathematics. For that reason, researchers recommend that about 10 minutes be devoted to building these proficiencies each day. By virtue of its nature, fact fluency is one of the rare domains where measurable improvement can occur in almost every session, provided an effective, efficient system is employed. These steady gains can be an incredibly powerful motivator for the student, instilling confidence that goes beyond the realm of math facts and builds perseverance for tackling advanced, challenging schoolwork in all subjects. The critical element here is the effectiveness and efficiency of the methods used to develop students' fact mastery. You might want to consider using technology, flashcards, and other materials for extensive practice to facilitate automatic retrieval. Some other strategies might include selecting visual representations that are appropriate for students and the problems they are solving, using think-alouds and discussions to teach students how to represent problems visually, showing students how to convert the visually represented information into mathematical notation, providing instruction in multiple strategies, and provide opportunities for students to work with the same strategies as problems increase in difficulty. Fluency practice is essential for all students since difficulty in mathematics is often related to lack of basic math skills. We want to ensure that students are provided learning experiences in mathematics that are rigorous and challenging, not too difficult due to fluency or too easy. So in conclusion, rigor equals complexity plus difficulty. Complexity is the depth of knowledge level of the task set by the standards, and difficulty is the variable based on individual students. And in mathematics, what makes something difficult for many students is the lack of automaticity when it comes to the basic math skills. Teacher actions need to include setting aside time for students to build their fluency skills. Rigor is about what students do and is individual to each student's needs. Creating rich learning experiences for all students will be based on the complexity of the task as well as the individual difficulty. You will want to make sure those learning experiences challenge each student's thinking in a new and interesting way. Here are some questions for you and/or your team to discuss based on this short webinar. How much time do your students spend each day on their math fluency skills? What strategies do you have in place for students to practice their fluencies? Additional resources on this topic can also be found in your resource folder. This webinar series is brought to you by Meteor Education and the Center for College and Career Readiness. For more information about how Meteor Education can help you develop high-impact learning experiences, go to meteoreducation.com.